श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. An exalted student, Narada, and an exalted teacher in the form of Lord Sanat Kumara are talked about or seen as examples. They are exemplified. Why? For many reasons. First, to show that, to create some kind of a interest in the minds and the hearts of the people. Shrotra buddhi prarochanartham. Because otherwise one is interested in all kinds of nonsensical things other than this Vidya. And the world obliges because, the world of objects is many and varied, full of names and forms, and each one better than the other, and each one, more compelling. And so, nobody is interested, as long as things are, the status quo is maintained. Very few people are interested in this teaching. So long as things are going. Only when they are gone, then, something is not all right, let me see what is missing. But generally, people are not interested. But if you say that, Sanat Kumara is teaching, it must be something big. Narada is the student, must be something big. So, there are many reasons why. First reason is to create in the minds of the aspirant a desire for this knowledge. It's not that the Shruti creates the desire. The desire is there, but it is latent, very much latent. It is not prominent. It is somewhere in the back, and it is assaulted, surrounded, eclipsed, transmuted into desire for objects. The desire for the subject I is what? Is made into desire for objects. This is a kind of a transference that everybody engages in, because the subject cannot be objectified, and one is only used to pursuing objects. And so the pursuit is really for the subject alone, unrecognized. It moves on, transforms, mutates into the pursuit of various objects. And for that kind of a mind that is object-oriented, it wants to name things, categorize things, put it under its belt, conquer things, It's the prakrita buddhi. Prakrita buddhi means as nature made buddhi. And what is this nature made buddhi? Catch, kill, eat. This is what, this is nature made buddhi. You see this in the wild. And it suits the wild animals because that's their purpose. They see whatever moves, it is food, whatever is smaller than oneself and moves, definitely lunch. You catch, you kill, you eat, you sleep, you get up, and the whole cycle repeats itself. And then even in the human being, this samskara has not gone. It is very, very much present. This catch, kill, eat, is a little more sophisticated. What do you want to catch? Anything that seems a little elusive, something that is difficult, a project, a grant, some kind of a person, catch, And then that's how even it is talked about. Oh, so and so got a good catch. You see? We even refer to it with that language. Even the language hasn't changed. So catch, conquer. This is the whole world. History is about somebody or the other conquering something or the other. You cannot let anything be in peace. And you have to keep naming it. And I went to Srinagar a few years back, and then there was this place where the Sharada temple is there, Adi Shankara's place. And now it is renamed. Suleiman Hill, Solomon's Hill, Yeah, this is what it is. So somebody called Suleiman went there and then it is named after him now. So like this, this is this catch, kill, catch, conquer mentality where the mind is very complicit and it tries to sort of categorize the objects that have been caught and conquered, and it tries to overcome, something or the other all the time, in the hope that collecting all these things, all these catches and kills and conquests are going to make this alpa, this small person or the person that has internalized the feeling of uselessness, smallness, into someone huge, big. Not happening. It is just a fantasy. And so, therefore, to bring the mind back to, to the pursuit of the truth of itself, these kinds of stories have a very important function. Because if the Upanishad is going to begin without a story, nobody is going to read it. That's why we have Nachiketa, we have Shvetaketu, and here Narada and Sanat Kumara. And so, if this much is understood, then, we saw yesterday how Narada lists off an impressive, collection of catches and conquests, all the subject matter that he has caught, all the things that he has mastered. And is Sanat Kumara impressed? No. What does Sanat Kumara say? You know a lot of words. And all these are just nothing. You know a lot of nothing, in other words. And a lot of nothing is nothing, still nothing. And so, this is what you know. Nama eva etat. This nama alone you know. And then Narada asks, so is it really useless? All these things? Rig Veda I have mastered, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, this, that, Itihasa, Purana, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, Jyotisham, Dhanur Vidya, Nakshatra Vidya, Kshatra Vidya, this Vidya, that Vidya, all that. Ayurveda, everything I know. All that is useless? No, it is not useless. It is useful in two ways, Sanat Kumara replies. It is useful in the sense of the empirical reality to which this whole, world of names belongs. Definitely it is useful. Everything is useful. As Pujya Swamiji used to say, even a broken clock is useful. Why? It shows the correct time 2 times a day. Yeah. Everything is useful. There's nothing useless, you know. And then he says, what is the use of this name? Another use, he says, is that if you understand that the truth of all names and forms included is Brahman, is Ishvara, is that which is without limits, is that which we talked about in the first class itself, that which is sentient and that which is limitless, that is Brahman. And if you contemplate on the name as Brahman, as a manifestation of Brahman, then you will go as far as the name can bless you. Up till then you will go, you know. And so this is, this is something that Narada has to sit and think about now. Okay, name means what? Name is Brahman. And if I contemplate on name as Brahman, name as Ishvara, every name is Ishvara. Namaha, Namaha, Namaha to every name. Then there are some karma phalas that come out of this, because this is after all an action, and every action has a result of action. So contemplating or worshipping the name as Bhagavan, brings with it a certain grace, brings with it punya, brings with it, some kind of a peace of mind. All these things Sanat Kumara says. Narada is a true adhikari because he's very qualified for this knowledge, has the desire for the knowledge. And then he says, is there anything that is greater than the name? You say that name is Brahman, and name is a manifestation of Brahman. All names are, dissolve in Brahman alone. Is there anything greater than that? And here Adi Shankara gives a beautiful, connecting commentary. And he, focuses on two things. He highlights two things for us. First thing is that, this is a particular methodology of teaching. You begin with something that is objectifiable in order to then lead the student to something that is very subtle, and then ultimately oneself, which is not an object at all. This is, this is a particular kind of a nyaya, a particular methodology of teaching. Here it is called Shakha Chandra Nyaya. Shakhayor madhye Chandraha iva. Shakha Chandra Nyaya, meaning the showing of the moon. First of all, we are not talking of the full moon, because the full moon is evident, You just look up, it is right there. So what kind of a moon are we talking about? We are also not talking of Amavasya, because there is nothing to see. We are talking of the first day after the no moon. Crescent moon, that slight silver sliver that is there in the sky. Go look at the moon. Where? The person cannot see the moon at all, especially if it's a child. And the child is eager to see the moon, but the child cannot see the moon. It's looking in the wrong place. Do you see the ground over there? I want you to look towards there. Oh, is the ground the moon? No, silly, ground is earth. How can it be the moon? But I just want you to focus there. But why? Because I want you to look at that tree that's coming out of the ground. Oh, come on, tree is not moon, the child says. No, but look at the tree. Do you see the tree? Yes, but that's not the moon. No, that's not the moon. Then you go higher up the tree, follow the gaze up the trunk of the tree. Do you see the tree branching out? Yes. Is that the moon? No, of course not. That's not the moon. But I just want you to look there. And then what? Then do you see one branch that is lower here? Yes. And then do you see a space in between? Yes. Do you see the upper branch? Yes. Now come and position yourself here, right in front of me, and look in between the two branches. What do you see? That is the moon. So you see, there is a kind of a process there. This is a beautiful process and an established Vedanta pedagogy, methodology of teaching that we find everywhere in all the Upanishads, and most notably in the Taittiriya Upanishad. We find that. Purushaha anna rasamayaha. Annamayaha purushaha. The person here, the human being, is a modification of what? Annam, food. That's why the word modification is important here. Because otherwise you think that, the idlis you eat come out, from under the skin and all these, the vadas and idlis. That's not what is here. It is transformed into blood, nourishment, all these things. Modification of food. And then, annadvai bhutani jayante, anne naiva jivanti. Because of food, the beings are all born, by food they are sustained, and then when they die, where do they go? Back to food. No, come on. How can they go back to food? They do go back to food. Because if you look at the modes of disposal, either they are interred under the ground, and then several generations later, one may be, they may be composting the soil, and one is eating the, remains of some foremother or forefather. That is the whole thing. This is what is talked about in the Shastra. Or the body is burnt and the ashes are put on the ground. Same thing. They go back to food. Therefore, annam brahma. Annam is nothing but Brahma. Brahman. So if you meditate upon food as Brahman, then what happens is that, everybody who meditates upon food as Brahman makes sure to get all kinds of wonderful, tasty things in this life and the next. Yeah, so I always say that if somebody, people are lucky enough to come to this ashram, they must have done Annam Brahmopasana in some other lives. Because here, the person is surrounded by food. Even if you don't want, food comes. So much food comes. Each dish nicer than the other comes. And so if your life is full of food, that means you can be very happy that you had meditated upon food, not on food. It's not about being a foodie, okay? You meditate upon food as Bhagavan. Then only this phala is there. And then what? It doesn't stop there. The teaching this is just the beginning. Anyontara atma pranamayaha. This is not the ultimate truth. If you think this is the ultimate truth and go away, then it is just going to be half knowledge. And you know what they say about half knowledge. What do they say? Half knowledge is dangerous. Yeah. So there is a deeper truth. And that is prana, because of prana, that life force which even, makes the plants grow, which controls the hunger in the body. That is greater than the food that you eat. And everything in the world is a vikara, a modification of prana. And then you go, like this. Then you meditate upon prana as Sutratma, the one that connects everything. That everything breathes, everything respirates, everything exhales, everything inhales, and everything depends on this prana. Even if it's not breathing, everything depends on this prana. Everything is a vikara, a modification of prana. And then after that you go to something, then you don't stop there. Then if you contemplate upon prana as Brahman, there are so many other things that happen as a result. And then, then you go to Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. All these are various, vikaras, modification, each one subtler than the other. So this is an established, established pedagogy in the in Vedanta Shastra called Shakha Chandra Nyaya. where the gross things are shown first, and so to be able to take the student step by step by step to something subtler and subtler and subtler according to their readiness and capacity. Adi Shankara talks about it in this Bhashya as Soparohanam, climbing a series of steps like rungs on a ladder. So you want to go to the top, of something. Maybe there is a temple and there is a steep staircase. So how do you go? You can't just fly. You can't propel yourself. You don't have a jet pack. Then what do you have to do? You have to go step by step by step. And here, this Soparohanam, what he talks about, we have to understand, one important thing. So you go on step number 1 and you leave step number 1 and you ascend to step number 2 and 3. Then what happens to step number 1? Was it useless? No, because it got me to step number 3. Is it useless now? Yes, because I don't need it anymore. But that doesn't mean that I did not rely on it earlier. So this is something which is very, very important to know. Slowly, step by step. And he calls it Soparohanam along with this whole Shakha Chandranyaya, because Shakha Chandranyaya has just a few steps. You make them see the ground yonder, you pick out a tree, make them see the tree, one branch, second branch, and then make them look in between. But in Sanat Kumara's teaching, it is just so, it is very, very mind-blowing on so many levels. He says, meditate upon name as Brahman. Oh, sir, is there anything greater than the name? Of course, there is something greater than the name. What do you need in order to even pronounce or articulate the name? Speech. Speech is greater than the name. And that is how you were able to tell me, oh Narada, how learned you are. You said, I know Rig Veda. How do you know that you know Rig Veda? Because you open your mouth and you rattle off the mantras. Agnimi ile purohitam yajnasya devam ritvijam, etc., etc. That's the first mantra of the Rig Veda. So you rattle off the mantras. How? How do you rattle off the mantras? Speech. Because of speech, there is Rig Veda. Because see, in those days it was not written down. It was entirely dependent on vak, speech. And then and the one who meditates upon speech, and mind you, speech is not something by itself. Speech here is talked about as a manifestation of Ishvara. Very beautiful. This whole series is a meditation. Speech is a manifestation of Bhagavan. Speech is the manifestation of the cause of the universe. Because here when we talk about Brahman, when he says Brahman, it is Jagat Karanam, the cause of the universe. It is not just, something there. So everything resolves into the cause of the universe. Everything has come from the cause of the universe. And this cause of the universe, we are calling it Brahman, Ishvara. So speech is a manifestation of Ishvara. And for those who meditate, worship speech as a manifestation of Ishvara, they are blessed by Brihaspati. Their speech becomes soft, gentle, and non-hurting, non-violent. All these are the phalas. Phalas means the results of this meditation. Then, of course, the inevitable Narada's question comes. Is there something greater than speech? And here we have to see what is the meaning of the word greater, because the same thing he will ask as we go down this list or go up the steps. What is this greater? Meaning, where is speech, stationed? So before that, what? Where are all the names coming out of? Names are coming out of speech. Where is speech located? That is what it is. Greater than means, what is its pratishtha? Pratishtha means, where is it established? What is the truth of this speech? Is there something greater than that? And then he says, yes, of course there is something greater than that. And where does speech come from? Before speech, what is there? Show some signs of life. Yeah, huh? Thought, exactly. And where does the thought originate? In the mind. So the mind is verily bigger than speech. Next step, because the speech is planned sometimes in the mind. Most of the time unplanned, okay? One just says whatever one feels like. But here, speech is planned in the mind, and from there it ensues, So definitely the mind is greater than speech. You see, now the mind is harder to objectify, is it not? Speech is easier. So you see how as we go up further and further from the grossest to the more and more subtle, mechanisms. And then speech, then mind. Mind is greater than speech. And then there must be something greater than the mind. What is the mind, Because mind is not much. In fact, manaha in Sanskrit is called sankalpa vikalpatmakam. Mind is an iffy mind. Should I do this? No, I think I should do something else. No, maybe I should do this. No, something else. Mind is indecisive. And mind is not there when you want it to be. Most of the time, about the mind, we can only say one thing: never mind. That's the safest thing you can say about the mind. Never mind. Because there must be something that disciplines the mind. What is that? Will. You have a will. And the mind is going down a, very strange road. Some kind of a road of manorajya, fantasy. You start visualizing you have won the lottery when you have not won the lottery. And then you start even distributing the money on the roadside because you have so much. And then the will comes in and says, come on, alam, enough, focus, come back. Or you're going down a negative trip, some kind of a bad trip. Nobody loves me, nobody cares, pity party, And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. All in the mind. See, I thought I'll come to the ashram and be around a few people, and then they also did not say hello. They didn't even see you. In fact, they had forgotten their glasses at home. Okay? In their hurry to come here to attend class on time. So they didn't even see you. Literally, they did not see you. But where does the mind go? Into a downward spiral. I thought this was my friend. I'm being neglected. Nobody loves me. Poor me. What about me? The familiar refrains. Then the will has to be strong. Come on, shake this off. This is not what is really happening. There must be some reason. And all this that you're just feeling sorry for yourself, it's not true. Snap out of it. Therefore, the will is greater than the mind. Then, greater than the will is, what is that? Buddhi. Here it is called chittam, buddhi. Memory. The memory of what is this life all about? Priorities. Decisiveness. All this is greater. Then each one is Brahman. You see, you have to see this. Each one is Brahman. Each one is non-separate from Brahman. It is identical with Brahman. It is nothing other than Brahman. Each and everything. But we are going to subtler and subtler realms. Sanat Kumara is taking Narada and now us on this wonderful journey. Then after that, what is greater than, intentionality? Buddhi. What is greater than buddhi is focus and concentration, here known as dhyanam. Dhyanam here is not meditation, but a focus. Here is the focus, and that focus is very, very, important, because the will is based on focus. And the focus is based on what? The focus is based on the ability to discern what should I focus on. That discernment is called vijnanam. What is it that I should focus on? Not this, but this. That focus is, is resting in the truth of vijnanam. Focus Brahman, vijnanam Brahman. And then what? That vijnanam, is resting on balam. Balam here is not strength. Balam is an alignment between mind and body. A kind of intentionality. I have a thought, I follow the thought, I act on that thought or not, whatever it is. There is a kind of a synchronicity between the mind and the body here, and that is called that strength, balam. And every strength is dependent on what? Food, annam. We are back to annam here. And in order to grow annam, what do you need? Water. Apaha. You need water. And that water, the truth of the water is what? Another element, fire. Then fire resolves into, akasha. See, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the 5 elements are discussed in, ascending order. In descending order from the subtlest to the grossest. Akasha, space, all the way to earth. And here only 3 elements are taken. That does not mean that there is a contradiction between the 2 Upanishads. What that means is that this is just an example, because this is not about elements. This is not a class about discussion of elements. What is this about? It's a discussion of Sopanarohanam or Shakha Chandranyaya. It is pointing to something. So if I point to something with my finger, what do I expect you to do? Look there, correct? Instead, if you catch hold of my finger and start to write a PhD thesis on my finger, the point is lost. So that's the whole idea. All these 5 elements, 3 elements, they are all just pointing to something. Only 3 are discussed, because other subtle things like buddhi, mind, sankalpa, intentionality, all this, is discussed. So then, after that, it says, what is subtler than akasha? Space is so subtle, you cannot touch space. You cannot, you just know it is there because you hear sound, and sound is in space, but you really don't see space. And space is Brahman, but is there something subtler than space? Yes, there is something subtler than akasha. What is that? Narada asks. It is your self-awareness. That you exist, that you know you exist. Self-consciousness, you can say here. And what is this behind this self-consciousness? What is the truth of self-consciousness? Very interesting trajectory of thinking. I just want you to go along, then we'll see all these things. What is behind this, self-awareness, self-consciousness? Desire, Arsha. And what is this desire? The desire to be. I want to be. Every jantu has it, not just human beings. I want to live. For how long? Forever. That's the correct answer. And you can in fact say forever and ever and ever and ever. This is not just the human being who wants to live forever. That's why the world is being, depleted of goji berries, acai or acai berries. Yeah. It's a very, very dire situation because all these antioxidants are being mined and eaten. This is what the whole thing is. Not just the human being who can find out scientifically which is going to, stop the oxidation in the body and then fill up on antioxidants. It's also everything from the smallest mashaka. Mashaka means fly. That's why it's called fly, because it sees you coming. It has 300 eyes to compensate for the small size. It sees you coming and flies away. A mosquito always will bite a part of the body that is not under the light. It will not bite here. It will bite somewhere here. Why? It doesn't want to be chutney. Yeah, because it knows you will go like this. It's instinct to survive. That is what here, that desire to be is in fact Brahman alone. In fact, one already is forever. But that desire is there because one doesn't recognize that. And so, Asha, hope. And the hope, what is subtler than hope? What is there something, where is hope held? Hope is held in the life force, prana, because a dead person has no desire. This is what he says, a dead person cannot desire. So hope is what? The pratishtha, the ashraya, the refuge of the place of desire or that hoping to be forever is where? In prana, the life force. And then what is the truth of prana? And like this he goes. And then he lists a lot of things. Truth of prana, then satyam, then shraddha, then nishtha, then a certain kind of a discipline, And then what else? Then he says, ultimately it's a form of discipline. And then, he says, ultimately it is this discipline, this shraddha, and all this truth, all these things one is committed to, is for the sake of what? He says, it is for the sake of happiness. For the sake of happiness. And let us read here, 7:22, 1. Yada vai sukham labhate atha karoti na asukham labdhva karoti sukhameva labdhva karoti sukham tu eva vijignyasitavyam iti sukham bhagavah vijignyase iti. Yeah. So, see, just to understand this happiness, that what makes the world go round is this sukha. Because of sukha, one is doing all these things. Look at all these steps, from the grossest nama to the most subtle prana. We have come round, we have ascended many, many steps, cognitive steps of understanding. Baby steps. And what is so important here is that the steps are connected to one another. Each one leads to the other. It is connected to the other. And this is just a micro understanding of the entire macrocosm called the universe. Each thing is the cause, and then it becomes the effect, and then there is another cause, and then that becomes the effect. Then that has another dada, grandfather cause, not grandfather clause, okay, yeah, grandfather cause, then that has another great grandfather cause, etc., etc. This whole world is a series of almost unending cause-effect scenarios. And we can come to some familiar terms here, And then we can go like, wherever you go, you come to a dead end in this world. There is almost like a anyonya ashraya, like a mutual dependency, so to speak. Whole world is connected through cause and effect. What is the cause of pot? Easy. What is the cause of pot? Clay. Then what is the cause of clay? Earth, you can say. Then what is the cause of earth? Then you can go water, and you can go to all the subtle five elements. That is one tract. Or you can say the cause of clay is molecules. Cause of molecules is what? Particles. Then you are entering into this very interesting connection of what's that? Quantum physics. And which maintains that there is some kind of an intentionality of the observer of this aforementioned particle. When the observer is looking at the particle, and it's almost like, are you a particle? It says, yes, I'm a particle. Another observer comes and says, no, you look like a wave, and then it looks like a wave. What does this mean? The observer is affecting the experiment. And if the observer is affecting the experiment, it is not scientific at all. This is not science. That's why we never say Vedanta is scientific. There is a lot of, discussion about that. Veda is scientific, Vedanta is not is scientific. We have no such pressure to prove that Vedanta is scientific. What for? Science is based on inference and induction and deduction. This is based on the means of knowledge called Shastra. There are two entirely different means of knowledge. This does not come under the purview at all. So then, there is no pressure to prove it is scientific. So therefore what? If the observer is affecting the experiment, that means what? There is a connection between the observer and the observed. And now what? You have left the realm of quantum physics and you have entered Vedanta. We would go so far as to say, not only is the observer affecting the experiment or is connected to that which is observed, that which is observed is not outside of the observer. In fact, it is one and the same. That which is observed resolves into the observer I. This is what the whole thing is. Everything has to resolve into the I. And this I here is talked about as Brahman. And there will be a new word introduced later on, Bhūma. That's why it's called Bhūma-Vidyā. So this everything resolves into this Brahman, everything resolves into the observer. Then we come to a very interesting discussion. What is the connection? What is the relationship between the observer and the observed? Do they belong to the same order of reality? This is a very important question to discuss. That which is observed is the effect, and the observer, we can say, is outside of this whole interconnected macrocosm of cause and effect. Same thing we can say. First we have cotton in the form of pods, and then cotton is the cause of what? Cotton yarn. And then yarn is the cause of fabric. Fabric is the cause of shirt. Like this you can go, and you can go backwards also. What is the truth of shirt? Fabric. Then truth of fabric, yarn. Truth of yarn, cotton. And truth of cotton, cotton bush. And then truth of the bush, cotton seed. Truth of the seed, another cotton bush. Truth of that cotton bush, another cotton seed. You go into what is called an infinite regression. That is of no use. Very frustrating to keep on, recycling that. And so therefore, this has to be understood that the observer, I, do not subscribe to or operate on the same laws as that which is observed. Observer, infinite, everything that is observed, finite. Drishta, nashta svabhavaha. Even as you see, it disintegrates. You know. And so, observer, we have a term for the observer. Observer is also a relational reality, you know. When am I an observer? When I am observing something, like even this flower. In relation to the flower, I am an observer. But then I close my eyes. What am I now? I can't call myself an observer anymore. You know? So this observer observed is also a relational reality. And what is the truth of this status of observer? And what is the truth of the status of this flower that is observed? That which is the observer, the status of observer is that same Ishvara upon whom this status is transferred, superimposed for lack of a better term, as though superimposed. And what is this observed? Here in this case flower, it is the same Ishvara upon which the name, form, flower is superimposed. And then it gains the status of observed. And so what is this Ishvara? Neither observer nor observed. Up till now I understood, but now this is a little too much. What do you mean? What do you mean neither observer nor observed? That is why it is infinite. Because if it is only observed, that it cannot be the observer. If one is stuck as an observer, then one cannot be the truth of that which is observed. So this observer, observer, observed, this dichotomy has to be resolved. And the only way to resolve it is to see that I as neither observed nor observer, on which these statuses are as though, we have to say as though, superimposed. Like what? Like you have a ocean, one wave, two waves. Let's say there are 3 big waves in the ocean. You see them. Let's call one the observer. And this observer wave is looking at another wave. And that's the observed wave. And what is the wave in the middle? It is the sight, the means of knowledge through which the wave, that third wave, is seen. It's the prism or the eyes or whatever, that the karana, instrument of observation. So is the first wave ocean or not? Say yes so we can move on. Is the wave known as the observer ocean or not? Yes. And is that which is the observed wave, is that the ocean or not? Yes. And the intermediate wave that allows for this perception to take place, is that the ocean or not? Yes. Every wave is the ocean. But is ocean wave? No. This is how to understand it. Observer, Brahman. Observed, Brahman. And whatever is the intermediate connection between the observer and the observed, usually a means of knowledge, induction, deduction, whatever it is. That too is Brahman. Then what is this Brahman? Is Brahman observer? No. Is Brahman observed? No. Is Brahman a means of knowledge? No. Everything is Brahman, but Brahman is not any one thing. It cannot be any one thing. This is the mistake that Narada made when he got all those degrees. He thought he was going to get at it and then amass something. And what did he know? Did he know, was speech Brahman? Yes. But Brahman is not speech. Mind is Brahman? Of course. But Brahman is not the mind. Prana is Brahman? Yes. Brahman is not prana. This is what the whole thing is. In order for it to sustain everything, It has to be nothing in particular. Don't say nothing, because then we will, we will be confused. There will be dissociation. It's not nothing. It is nothing. It's not any one thing in particular. That's why it cannot be caught. It cannot be conquered. It cannot, be, talked about. If it cannot be talked about, why are you keeping on talking? It can be talked about only indirectly. It need not be talked about directly. It cannot be talked about directly because it is you. It is you. That Brahman is you. That's why it says, Aham Brahmasmi, Mahavakya is there. That Brahman is you. That which is beyond this observer-observed divide. And if this much is understood, we have to say that, that there is no more the difference between subject and object. What subject? What object? Where is this? What Jagat? What observer of the Jagat? And this is a very nice, very nice understanding, because otherwise the mind, the ahankara, feels very proud. I spy with my own eyes this, I have seen that, I was the first one to see this, so it should be named after me. And people fight over this. Even one amoeba, has to be named after me. Why? Come on, Think about it, and everybody will be cursing you each time, they go to the bathroom, because you want to be named after one amoeba. This is what it is. This is what it is. Every single, whatever specimen, geological specimen, biological specimen, stars in the sky are named after people. This naming roga, this disease, is coming in the way of understanding this. It is the catch, kill, eat, conquer, mentality. And as long as this mentality is rampant, this will not be understood. And that is why, this whole journey was undertaken by Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara takes Narada on a journey. Every step of the way, what you're looking at is Ishvara. Mind is Ishvara. Think about it. Think about how the thoughts fall in place. Think about how the thoughts lead to action. Think about how certain thoughts desist from even, translating into action. Where do the thoughts come from? Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha. Is there a force behind the thoughts that make the thoughts come and drop into the mind? This is the question the student asks in the Kena Upanishad, very pertinent. And how do these thoughts operate? And how come I can't get rid of these thoughts? How come these thoughts really plague upon the mind? And how come, I am helpless in the face of certain chronic thoughts, and now they are not known as thoughts. They have a new name, patterns of thoughts. And when you're talking of a pattern, there is Ishvara, because it is reliable, it is an order, it's an infallible law. This is what makes the psychologists very happy, because they have yet one more confirmation that under these circumstances, this is the emotion that one can feel. Early childhood neglect will lead to certain issues in adulthood. This is a law. Or some kind of something that happened, some trauma in childhood can lead to anxiety in adulthood. Then what happened? When I look upon it this way, the anxiety is not my own. The fear doesn't belong to oneself. The sorrow doesn't belong to oneself. And yet you're not just, dissociating from the sorrow, and you're not in denial about the challenges and the patterns. You see the pattern, and you see this body-mind-sense complex also struggling or caught in this pattern. But when you see the pattern, you're looking at Ishvara. You're looking at Ishvara in the most, in everything that is objectifiable, there is the presence of Ishvara. And that Ishvara presence says, okay, this is the order of the mind. So every incident of trauma leads to these kinds of issues. Then no longer is it one's own trauma. There is no trauma. That is my own. I don't feel singled out. This is wonderful. This is objectivity. There is no reason to feel singled out. There is no reason to feel persecuted. There is no reason to feel this personalized pain. This is fantastic. In other words, the trauma has become Rama. Really. No trauma, no drama, only Rama. This is wonderful. The pain has been Ishwarized. Is that a word? Now it is. The ishwarification of pain. Is that a word? Yes. The ishwarification of sorrow. This is what it is. This is what it takes. This is what it takes. Otherwise, we dismiss, name and form, I don't want name and form, I want to go to Brahman. Where are you going to go? How are you going to go? Go where is Brahman? Anything that you sit on to go, that is also Brahman, And where you reach, that is Brahman. Who is the reacher? That is Brahman. That's why we have that mantra. I just don't want you to get hungry, but I will chant it nonetheless. Which mantra? Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Everything is Brahman. Who is goer? Who is the offerer? What is the offered? This is what it means. There's nothing to personalize. There's only Ishvara. All that is there is the series of orders which pervade this body, mind, sense complex and me, the ahankara, which pervades everything. And so when I look upon it this way, the pain is Ishwarized. I can look at the pain, whether it is physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, there is a cause. And it is not just me. Thank God there is a lot of relief. There's a lot of relief in not feeling singled out. And there is safety in seeing this pattern. And so that is on the very empirical level, that is one level to look at. And it's a very important level. You cannot skip this level. Somebody came to me and said, I want to learn Vedanta, but can you teach me Vedanta without talking about Ishvara? I said, you'll have to find another teacher. I'm very sorry. Because that which we are talking about as Ishvara is Vedanta. You cannot have Nirishvara Vedanta. Maybe Nirishvara Sankhya. There is a kind of a, darshana, a kind of a philosophy. Or one can be a Charvaka, where Ishvara is not discussed at all. Eat, drink, pillage, and all these things, and then die away. There is no karma, no accountability, no continuity, no patterns, nothing. Do whatever you want. That philosophy, yes, you can do this. But here we have to understand what this Ishvara is. When we say Ishvara, we are not talking of a guy in the sky. Please see this. Yeah. We are not talking of some fellow sitting in the sky and then, dispensing blessings like, lotion. Yeah. It's very problematic. And then people, when you say, where is Ishvara? People look up. Yeah. And then you have to go to a chiropractor because you're looking really hard and not seeing anything. You get dizzy. That's not the point. What we are talking about as Ishvara is each and everything that is connected to each and every other thing, not accidentally in the form of invariable laws and in the form of intelligence, in the form of a present intelligence that is not outside of your own presence and your own ability to know this order. That too is included in this order. This is what is Ishvara. It includes you, it includes your body, it includes your mind, it includes your doubts, it includes your despair, it includes your sorrow, it includes your tears, it includes your fears, it includes everything. In fact, if there is something called limitless, it has to include you. You cannot say, I want darshan of that which is limitless. Arjuna tried that in the 11th chapter. Bhagavan took pity on him and said, I'll give you a special pair of glasses and please wear this. That was Google glasses. First iteration. Yeah. That's how they got the idea. So he wears these. Divya Chakshu. He wears these. And then he wants to see the show. It's like looking at a black hole. How can you look, so there is a talk among astronomers. This Betelgeuse, is about to explode or something like that. And then there is, that is one big happening that one can look forward to a few thousand years later. And then another, celestial event, sky event is this, that the next, our galaxy is called what? Milky Way. Next to this Milky Way is this Andromeda. This Andromeda is much bigger. It's a bada galaxy. Milky Way is a baby galaxy, and size-wise. And then this Andromeda is coming straight at Milky Way. And then when two galaxies come together, one does swaha to the other. No other possibility is there. Then I read one article, very interesting, where the astronomers are contemplating seriously. It will be so nice to see the wings of the galaxy, becoming one, and then all this. Where is the best show? First of all, we don't even know where exactly in the Milky Way the solar system is located. That's also an inference. So if we are too close to the black hole of the galaxy, then what happens? That is one way of becoming part of the whole. Okay? So, HOLE here. You can't really do this. And then what? And if you're too far away, you can't, you may get eaten up by the wings of the galaxy. Like this, there is all this. It's a moot discussion. Where should I sit to enjoy the show? This is like saying, how can I look at this limitlessness? And this is what Arjuna tried. And Arjuna saw Duryodhana, Dushasana, all these baddies being vacuumed up by the fiery mouth of the Lord. And they were trying to save themselves. Duryodhana was hanging between the two teeth of the Lord. And he saw all this. And then he just thought, I must be next. OMG, I did some bad things, I told some lies. And and this Krishna is this being. I didn't know this. I slapped him on the back. And then we were friends. I thought he was a friend. And he does so many namaskaras in the 11th chapter because he is frightened, he remains frightened, and he begs for mercy and he says, enough of this show, come back to your pleasing self. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, this pleasing countenance, play with some gopis, assure me that you are okay. This is what he says. So, therefore, you cannot see the limitless. It's not an object. And even if you go and see Bhagavan, this smallness will not go. So that limitless must be cognized as the truth of the observer, as the truth of the observed. In other words, it is nothing other than I, which is uncreated and not subject to any end. Uncreated and undying. More we shall see in the evening class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.